Thank you again. Just waiting on a notification, sir. Okay. Okay, perfect. And we are live. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to a very special edition of Off the Record on the People's Podcast this evening. We have an incredible guest with us, one who's going to give us some amazing information as well as inspiration, and that is none other than the student minister out of Chester, Pennsylvania, Brother Keith Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Alaikum salam.
This means so much to myself, my family, and the viewing audience of the People's Podcast that you would take time out of your busy schedule to come and have a conversation with us.
Well, brother, I'm humbled and thankful and grateful and honored that you would ask me to be a part of your podcast and be a part of the program.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. Well, Brother Minister, when was the first time you heard the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad?
1988. And I tell the story often because it's something that makes me to know that where I am working now is really where I'm supposed to be. In 1988, I was in college. I played college football Division II and Westchester University, and we were on the way to a game. And we had Walkmans back then. You know, it was a little cassette player.
Yes,
it was
sir.
the beginning of all these handheld devices. And I was on the bus listening to I don't know what I was listening to, music. And a brother from Chester, Pennsylvania, handed me a tape and said, listen to this. And it was a message from the minister from Atlanta. I believe it was the Power Lasts Forever in Atlanta, Georgia, if I'm not mistaken. And when I heard that message, that was it. And that same brother would bring tapes up to the school, and myself and another brother on the football team started listening, watching the minister. That was the fall of '88. And I believe in 1990, Brother Abdul, who's a great brother who came in the ranks with me out of Westchester as well, he found out where the mosque was in Philadelphia. So we came home one weekend, February of '90, my first time at the mosque number 12. And I accepted then and registered in August of '90. So, and the rest they say is history. So that brother from Chester gave me a tape. And now I find myself serving and working in the city of Chester. So it came full circle.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, I played football as well, sir. What position did you play in football?
I played quarterback all through my younger years in high school. When I got to college, you know, I played both ways in high school, safety and quarterback. So when I got to college, I played free safety.
Okay, yes, sir. And back in 1988, who were some of the quarterbacks you were looking up to help, you know?
Well, in the 80s, well, the Eagles, of course, Randall Cunningham was the quarterback in the 80s. Once they got rid of Jaworski, Randall and Warren Moon was another great quarterback from the 80s. The black quarterbacks, of course, Doug Williams was some of the ones I looked up to. And then on the defensive side, Eagles had a hard-hitting defensive backfield back then. Wes Hopkins, what's the other safety name? He passed away from CTE. Oh man, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name, but he was from Cheney University. But you know, the black quarterbacks are the ones that of course I looked up to the most. But yes, sir.
Great, yes, sir. And my sister Miriam and sister Kimberly Taylor Muhammad both send the greetings. And thank everyone.
Assalamu alaikum.
Yes, sir.
Sister
And thank
Miriam, all right.
Praise be to Allah. Thank everybody who continues to like, share, subscribe. I can't wait to put this on YouTube, Brother Minister.
Yes, sir.
What was it specifically that made you want to accept the teachings once you heard it? Like, what was it that stood out to you as an athlete?
I don't know if it was as an athlete, but it was the message. That message, of course, the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad resonates with you. And my family wasn't big on religion. Of course, by default we were Christian, but we weren't going to church and everything and all that. Maybe Easter, that was about it. But when I heard the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, of course, the knowledge of God and the information. But one of the first video I watched of him was from the University of Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. And that message was so powerful. But of course, the minister's eloquence, the knowledge that he displayed, and in that setting, of course, was the similar setting that I was in. So the message really gripped me. And then that was it, man. I mean, we would skip class. I remember he came on Donahue back to back in 1990. And me and Brother Abdul, we didn't go to class that morning or the next morning to make sure we watched him on Donahue. So, you know, it's the message of truth that, like I said, I wasn't necessarily seeking anything that I knew about. But once I heard the message, that was it. You know, I didn't even finish playing football. Became real rebellious against the football structure. We used to wear towels in our pants, you know, to keep our hands dry. We used to put red, black, and green flags, star and crescent flags. Me and Brother Abdul became real rebellious. And then they sent the only black coach in there to talk to us. And then Abdul jumped on him. No, you're going to come in here, Uncle Tom. So we didn't stay on the football team too much longer. I know I didn't, but it was the message that just touched the soul. It was the thing, you know, what made me really join that summer of '89, I guess it would be. I got hold of the tape, How to Give Birth to a God, Part 1. And I remember I worked at, I don't know if it was Pep Boys or somewhere that summer, but I listened to that tape every day when I walked to work. And that's the tape, that's the message that changed me. When I came back to school that fall semester, I was done. No more drinking, no more messing around with women. I had, you know, that message transformed my mind to the degree where, of course, I saw women differently, but saw myself differently. And that's the message that made me say, that's it. You know, I changed before I came to the mosque, you know, so that's how powerful it struck me that year.
Beautiful. Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. And who trained you once you came into mosque number 12? Like, what was the climate like and who trained you?
Oh, man, I had, when I joined mosque number 12, he was Minister Anthony at that time. He's Muftakir now in Memphis. Very beautiful, humble brother. So when I got registered, and a brother named Clarence, Captain Clarence, was the captain. And I had several great lieutenants when I first joined, but shortly after I joined in '90, that next year, Minister Anthony was called to Chicago. The minister brought him out, and then Student Minister Rodney came. And he's been there ever since. And when Minister Rodney came, we had Brother Captain Gregory Muhammad. I don't know if you recall him, of course. He became the regional captain.
Yes, sir.
And most of my training came up under Captain Gregory and the lieutenants, you know, several lieutenants, Brother Jacob, Brother Hassan, and a whole host of great soldiers. But Captain Gregory was my captain for the longest period of time in those early years of training. And I thank Allah. And of course, that same year that Minister Rodney was sent to Philadelphia, it was actually, I was in Chicago that June, myself and another brother. We drove the MGT. They had a national meeting. And at that time, Captain Frank was the supreme captain.
Yes, sir.
But that night at the banquet where the sisters was there and the minister was there, he made your father the supreme captain and told Minister Rodney, I had a city in mind for you. He didn't say what the city was, but it was Philadelphia. So that whole, you know, the early '90s was a great time. I always reflect on it to come in the ranks because I heard the minister say in a message in the '90s, when he started rebuilding the work, he had to really go back prior to '75 in the mold and methods. And then he had to transition beyond '75. So in the '80s, it was more like prior to '75 from what I can see and listen and hear from those who were there. But then in the mid 80s with the study courses and then transitioning into the 90s, you had something that took us beyond there, of course, but we still had that strong discipline, that strong military. And when your father came on the post, of course, a great leader of men, trainer of men, and his regional captains were the same. So I was blessed to get all that great training and then be under a brilliant student minister like Brother Rodney for all these years. So it was definitely a great foundation, I believe, that we all received in that time frame.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. And I hear people speak of my father. I didn't get to see him as a Supreme Captain as an FOY. It was more just dad to me. But as a Supreme Captain, what were some of the things that he did that stuck out to you that maybe the new generation coming up can benefit from? Like what was it about his staff?
Man, it's so much. The one thing that really sticks out to me about your father as a Supreme Captain, of course, great disciplinarian, very great organizer and mover of men, but he was very fair. And one thing I always remember, because in the early 90s, man, we would get on post, and I mean, we'd be on post for hours, 5, 6, 7 hours. But in the national events especially, and we traveled a lot during that time, the minister was really moving with the Stop the Killing and then the men's tour. But he would walk through the arena and he would say, "Soldier, how long you been on post?" And he made sure the men were not just left hanging. We were soldiers, so we would be on post for hours, but he brought in a measure of thoughtfulness about the soldiers and making sure the soldiers were taken care of, but also making sure there was no excuse, making sure the men were trained, making sure the nation's program was pushed, you know what I mean? And that really catapulted us. And I believe, the Million Man March, from that period, from 90, 91 to the Million Man March, and history proves it. Your father was born to serve in that role for that period to help the minister produce the Million Man March. And I mean, that was like the height for the FOI with the culmination of that day. But the way we were driven, the way we were organized, the way we were no limit soldiers in the true sense of the word, your father and the regional captains under the minister's guidance, of course, really helped to instill that kind of discipline. And I think for the current day, right after the Million Man March, I always go back to this because, some of us, we can get into how it used to be. And Brother Captain Gregory, may Allah be pleased, when one of his favorite lines was, "Used to be's don't make no honey."
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Want to hear about what we used to do. So when we go back, sometimes some of us that's been through and still are here from those days, we'll talk about what isn't now. But I say, man, we've been here the whole time. And in 1996, right after the Million Man March, the minister told us in New York City that we had been skillfully turned, so skillful that we didn't know we had been turned. And we were still at the height, but he already saw it. And I believe that it was necessary, though. I always have this is my own perspective from that message that the minister that I referenced earlier, where he said he had to start prior to 75 and how he did things and then transition it. I always like to look at it like this. In 75, we had that transition that took place, that took away the FOI, took away the military training, and turned us in a way. And I believe through the skillful and really divinely guided moves the minister has made from the 80s all the way to this day, that we had a similar thing without taking away the structure, without taking away, but we lost a lot of our militancy for various reasons being turned. And I think it helped to produce an environment where you will have self-disciplined men and women who impose the discipline on themselves. So if the structures ever remove it, we ain't going for, you know what I mean? So my whole vision of it all was that the minister, being divinely guided, helped to set up the environment where those who are going to be soldiers, those who want to be self-disciplined, but it's still time for us to tighten up, of course, especially in a time like this. So those who are the young soldiers today, studying that period, talking to people from that period, and also, of course, the minister's words and guidance, and really becoming self-disciplined. And I think you all, the what we like to call the nation babies.
Yes, sir.
It's even though you have several generations now, but those of you now who are in your 20s and 30s, born in the nation, like my children, I really believe that you all are really primed right now, and the nation is moving in a way, and I see it. And so many young soldiers like yourself and what you all are doing and getting the word out via the platforms that are now the modern technology. We can move at a quicker pace. The lion's out the cage. So
yes, sir.
I look at you all and the others, and I thank Allah for the generation that has come up. And I share this because I have such affection for the children of believers, and especially believers who labor for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And the children of those and the family of those laborers, many people don't understand. And I was talking to a young brother here. This was a while ago, but he was, the son of a laborer. And I was telling him, I said, you all don't have the advantage we had. Y'all had the blessing of being born in the nation, never having the mystery God teaching. So that's a great advantage, no doubt. But being born and raised in the teachings, you all never get that wow factor when you hear the message. So if you're raised, and because the environment we're in is so strong, and because we have, to a degree, not established the institution so that you can grow up in the schools and everything is nation, then this is putting our children in the world and asking them to be in the world and not of it. But the teachings, like when I heard the teachings, I was in college. Colleges are the most wicked dens of iniquities you can find. But because the teachings was new to me, it hit me like a brick, and I was able to drop and stop and change my life. But the believer who's born in Islam, loves that nation, they never get that wow factor. So the wrestling with the world is even harder and that's why I always say you can't judge and talk and really look at nation babies, as we like to call them, children of believers and laborers, with any kind of, judgment or thinking they should be this. No, we had the benefit, most of us, of being hit in the head and woke up. And some of us don't fare too well in the world. You know what I mean? So,
yes, sir.
But I see it. I see the movement now with all these young believers, many of them children of believers, second and third generation, really taking their place in your nation to help bring it to the next level.
Praise be to Allah. Excellent. Thank you very much, Brother Minister. Some people showing you love in the comments. My sister Naima said, all praises to Allah. Sister Khadija Kareem says, Assalamu alaikum, family, and teach Brother Keith. Yes, sir. My next question for you is, what was it like for you meeting the Most High Minister Louis Farrakhan, and what has been your biggest takeaway from a personal interaction with him?
Whoa. I'm trying to remember the first time I actually met him. Being a soldier, being in close proximity, of course, on post in the early 90s, you had those occasions. But once I joined the ministry class and had the occasion to greet him, I think I may have shaken his hand prior to this, but I recall it was in the year escapes me, but it was a Mother's Day meeting, and we all traveled to Chicago for that. I think they invited the student ministers out, and that was the first time I sat, where the ministers sit over there.
Yes, sir.
Next
Yes, sir.
behind the rostrum. So I was sitting over there. Then afterwards, the minister wanted to greet all his student ministers. So we actually went back into the office, and that was the first time. That's the real first time I remember getting that personal greeting with him. And he asked me my name. I told him who I was and where I was from. And that time, As I came in the office, it was a brother presenting him with a painting, and the minister had taught a lecture where he said that he saw himself as a little child playing with marbles inside of this big man that all these people are making a fuss about. So a brother had painted a picture of a little boy playing with marbles, a silhouette of the minister, all the things and accolades around him. And when I walked in, he was looking at the picture saying, that's the picture based on his description. And he really was enamored with the picture. So he greeted me, shared just a word or two of encouragement. So that was the first time, really having that moment with him. But the most memorable time and was actually being blessed to have dinner at the palace with him in, I think it was 2009. And the story was real. I'm not gonna go through the whole story, but myself and a few other student ministers, I think maybe 6 to 8 months prior to, they invited all the student ministers out to get in to have dinner. But we got to the door of the palace and we weren't able to get in because of the limited space. So we had traveled just for the purpose of coming. It was real disappointing, man, handling disappointment, and myself and a couple other brothers from the student, one brother in particular, from the Delaware Valley. We had to wait because Minister Rodney was in, so we waited, we stewed a little bit. But then that following Savior's Day, we were actually at the airport getting ready to leave. And Student Minister Rodney called us and said, look, they're looking for people to have dinner with the minister. Me and brother looked at each other like, now we gonna go for this again. We was about to get on the plane. And praise be to Allah, we said, no, we in ahead and we changed our tickets. We went and we were blessed to have dinner. And from everything that everybody told me, it was a dinner like no other. We were there at 2 a.m. And the minister asked these 2 questions of everybody that was there. Do you believe the Hon Elijah Muhammad is still physically alive? And do you believe in my vision on the wheel?
Let's get into it.
He wanted to know why. So he went around the table and that was an experience. That was a beautiful, beautiful night. Of course, the minister taught and shared so much. And it was about 2 a.m. when we left there. By the time he got to us, we weren't at the main table. So it was so late, they didn't want to hear all the reasons anymore. So by the time they got to where we were sitting, it was just yes. And, but it was a day like no other. But in general, what I always share with people about the minister, and having been able to greet him on many occasions over the years, the humility that the minister has and the love and respect and attention he gives everybody that stands in front of him, regardless of whether or not you some known quote unquote big shot or just somebody he doesn't even know personally. He gives you his undivided attention, and the humility and spirit that exudes from that man is absolutely, it's almost undescribable to some, except that you know it and you've been around him, but it's nothing more than divine. But his humility and love for each and every person that he meets and the genuineness of him is just, it makes you know that you with the right man, and we need to work to help him in this mission.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. Well, some people are showing you love in the comments right now on Facebook. And thank everybody who seems to like, share, subscribe to the People's Podcast. I can't wait to put this on YouTube. I'm going to come back because I want to hear your answers to those 2 questions. Because that, that's very important in a time like this. I mean, it's always important, but especially in a time like this. But before we go, I want to have a quick, before we answer those questions, a quick 60-second commercial break to all of the sponsors of the People's Podcast, because those questions are very important. And Minister, I'm glad and honored that I am able to have this conversation with you. We're able to have this conversation with you so that we could hear. I feel like I would have never known about Chester, Pennsylvania, if it wasn't for Sister Kareem and their family.
Yeah,
introducing
that's
themselves
cool.
through music. I mean, through Facebook, and then they knowing that you're
Right,
the
right.
music, so I'm honored. If you all
That's
like to
cool.
be a sponsor or a donor of the People's Podcast, please cash up the People's Podcast. Thank you very much. My brother Rashad, Street Premier Media Production. He has a 4K camera and a drone. He does television and film editing. Please reach out to him if you need any of those services. My sister Miriam, ABC I Love Me children's book and coloring book, both of which are available on Amazon. Please go out and get those books. My sister Naima, Stay On Point Dance Academy, LLC. She teaches ballet virtually to young girls all across the country and right here in the studio in Atlanta, Georgia. We love our tiny dancers. Student Minister Robert L. Muhammad out of Austin, Texas, conflict mediation, squashing the beefs throughout the Southwest region. He does a phenomenal job. Thank you very much, sir. His wife, Children of the Sister Fudia Muhammad, in her book, Children of the Most High, Giving Birth to a God in the Science of Child Rearing. Please get that book. Sister Sherry Muhammad, Asiatic Minds, a virtual school that teaches STEM to young kings and queens all across the country, asiaticminds.com. Thank you very much, Sister Sherry Muhammad. Our brother out of St. Louis, Urban Streetwear, Clothing Men for Boys, Fashion Gods. 314-329-8009. That's Fashion Gods. Thank you very much. A new sister out of Atlanta, Georgia, Power Campus Online Learning. If you do you want to improve your homeschooling experience with we're here to help. Contact 770-847-0786. Thank you very much. Please reach out to our sister, Dr. Henry M. Carter, King Henry's Turkey Legs, right here in Atlanta, Georgia. Our brother Rashad Muhammad of Chicago, COVID-19 Disinfecting Cleaning Services. My father's book, A Soldier in the Movement of Christ, and Down is Not Out, both of which are available on abdulsharif.com. And last but not least, my two books, Cleopatra, which is a children's book, and No Father, No Excuse, both of which are available on Amazon. Thank you all very much for all of the sponsors and donations. Thank you very much. Right back to our brother, Student Minister Keith. So let's deal with the two questions, because these are two important questions.
Yes, sir.
Most Hon Elijah Muhammad being physically alive. Do you believe that?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
And why do you believe that?
To be as brief as possible, of course, the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, as he taught us, they can be backed up by science, the scriptures, the laws of nature, mathematics. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad being physically alive, the minister, first and foremost, is the greatest evidence that he's alive based on the work that he's done since 1977 when he stood back up, and the more than vision experience. They're tied together because in that experience, it was the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that gave him the instructions as well as the revelation of what the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the President's cabinet had met to plan a war. Beyond that, the scriptural understanding and perspective of who Christ and Jesus is on a couple levels. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad being the fulfillment of that. He states it. And then, of course, if you read the scriptures the way we are taught, of course, the history versus the prophecy, 75% of what we read is prophecy versus 25%. Then if we believe in the scriptures, then who is this individual that is predicted to escape death, to ascend to his Father? Who is the individual that's described as Messiah on one level, that is a messenger to the children of Israel? And again, the number one evidence for me is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Yes, sir.
His work, everything he does is in the name of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad being physically alive. And when you study the Quran as it deals with truth, where it tells us if something was fabricated, Allah would seize the liar by his jugular vein and cut off his life vein. The minister standing in the name of Allah and working for now over 40 years, in 81 making the announcement that he was still physically alive, and the unmeasured success that he has is evidence that he's backed by Allah, that it is the truth, But also as a believer, this is a cardinal point of belief. And people say, well, where's the evidence? But the evidence still takes a measure of vision based on belief. And this cardinal point of belief, I believe ultimately, the minister told us a while ago, if you don't believe it, don't worry, just keep walking with it. But now it's like, if we can't see it and believe it now, then it's going to be a separation that takes place. And then transitioning to the other question that he asked us that night, I didn't get a chance to express. I just answered yes to the Hon Elijah Muhammad being physically alive. But on the aspect of his vision on the will, I did say what others had said at the table. The minister, when he tells that experience, he tells it the same every time. If it's something that's fabricated or made up, and I was just talking about this Sunday at the mosque, if you tell a lie, you have to remember it. You got to follow it up with other lies, and the story changes. And you're trying to remember what you said, but when it's genuine and he uses the same language, and that same experience is written of September 17th in the New Living Translation of the Bible, it actually talks about the September 17th experience with the wheel. I think Brother Nori highlighted it that night at dinner. But if you look up the New Living Translation, just type in, search it with September, and you'll see that experience is written with that same date, September 17th, the minister's experience on the wheel, and of course, what was revealed, and then the presence of the wheels being seen everywhere and documented. It proves the efficacy and the truth of what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has taught us, and the minister's experience has also borne true, because he's been guided by their experience, he says, in everything he's done in this rebuilding since that date and time.
Beautiful. Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. I've never heard of the September 7th. I mean, like that being mentioned in the Bible, but definitely that's amazing as well. Yes, sir. In your time in Pennsylvania, from Philadelphia to Pennsylvania on the East Coast, have you, and traveling, throughout the country, have you ever been faced with fear? And if so, how have you? Yes, sir. And if so, how have you overcome that fear?
Of course, we've been faced with fear. I was working actually for NOI Security, your father's company, in the early 90s, and we worked in the projects in Philadelphia, and we had several occasions, of course, confronting some of the brothers. And one night, a brother pulled the gun out on us, and we got into a little tussle. So, of course, in those moments, fear is always presented, because fear is just, the response to pending danger. So when we go through, and then, so in those type of moments, you either go on fight or flight, and of course, our teaching, along with the Brotherhood of Islam, and as we are taught, Islam brings out the military propensity in the Black man. Yes, and then men sharpen men, steel sharpen steel. So you feel the strength of your brotherhood and unity when you're faced with situations. So, of course, we were able to meet that situation without any harm coming to any brothers, and very little harm coming to those who were on the other side of the altercation. And then, just over the years, but even, fear presents itself in many ways. And I tell the believers all the time in Chester, and personally, I don't talk. I'm very reserved, quiet to myself. Not really I wouldn't call myself an extrovert. And I could have never seen myself speaking and talking. Mm-hmm. So being before people, especially in the earlier years, coming into the ministry, and it's always a reverence for that opportunity. So you always have some, a feeling of fear, because you want to be right and exact. But just being before people is something that I had to wrestle with coming into the ministry in particular, because I didn't really even consciously join the ministry. I got in the ministry by following general orders, and been in it ever since, because I came to study group one night, and the brother that does study group didn't show up. So, being a young soldier, I'm going to take charge of the post, and pretty much have been in the ministry ever since, starting with conducting study group, and then being an assistant to Minister Rodney for several years in Philadelphia, and then coming to Chester in 2004, I believe, and taking on this assignment. So yeah, fear, I think faith is the number one thing. Confidence and trust, not only in God, but also in yourself. And if you're with others, of course, in the brotherhood, but we're constantly faced with different fears, and it's just a matter, like the minister says, courage is not that you don't get afraid, it's meeting and not backing down from the fear and being able to face it with faith and confidence in God and yourself.
Praise be to Allah. Excellent. Yes, sir. And some people in the comments are showing love. Brother Troy says, Assalamu family. And Sister Khadija says, Muhammad doesn't make any punks. And thank everybody who just continue to like, share, and subscribe to the People's Podcast. My next question for you, Bro Minister, is the Million Man March. You spoke of that being like the height of the military and things of that nature. What was it like leading up to that? And how did it personally impact you?
Man, leading up to the march, it was a grind, man. I mean, it was pushing. It was pushing nonstop. And I can recall, because this was, the minister reached out to various entertainers and others, to assist. But we had to really raise that money mainly from the Final Call newspaper. And I can recall, and at that time, leading up to the march, I think we were getting 20,000 papers in Philadelphia. And we got 20,000 copies of one edition, and we had to sell it at $2 because it was the specially raised funds for the Million Man March. So now the paper is $2. It just got the $2. I forget how long ago, but not that long ago. But at that time, we had to go out with that paper. So really just a grind, man, just pushing. The minister was traveling. So traveling all throughout anything from Cleveland all the way to the East Coast, all the way from Boston down to, DC, Baltimore. We were making those trips to really push with the minister. So it was a grind, but it was a spirit and energy, man, that in Philadelphia in particular, which brought one of the largest contingents to the Million Man March. I mean, the city was just lit. I mean, it was just an energy and a spirit, because it was a divine call. So people were responding, and the local organizing committees was popping, man, and the people really responded. So I can remember that hard push. And then the day of the march, really the night before, we got down there, myself, and I believe me and Student Minister Victor, who's in Pittsburgh now, we rode down together, and we were assigned posts that night. But the night before, the city of DC was just lit. It was a big event at the convention center. I can remember being out there with bean pies, selling and pushing pies, and nobody went to sleep, it seemed like. Then we got assigned posts overnight to greet the buses. So I can recall sitting up that night in the car, waiting for the buses, escorting them in, and then coming to the march, man, getting there, because we were on post. We weren't there at the very, very onset. But by the time we got there and got on post, man, and the people were just pouring in. And that was a day that is, if you weren't there, it's hard to describe, as we talked about meeting the minister, but it was such a aura and a spirit. The paper, the Final Call captured, it was a glimpse of heaven, literally. The energy and spirit was so thick with love, man. Black men being there, and just experiencing that day. It was life altering for so many people. And being an FOI, of course, we were on post the whole time, but you still were able to take in, the day and what it did in your very being, as far as seeing Black men show love to Black. You didn't see that. We come out the 80s, the crack epidemic, things was crazy in the streets, of course. And to see Black men come together like that, it instilled hope for a whole people, and it put a stop it put a slowdown. They ain't stop it, because the enemy's still working on the death plot that they have been always trying to execute to really wipe us out wholesale. But yeah, the Million Man March was, we had the Million Family March, Millions More Movement, 10, 10, 15. But, with the Million Family March, we went expecting to get the same thing, but it was like, okay, this is great, but it ain't the Million Man March. And it's something because, it was such an energy, man, that the other marches were beautiful and had their own energies and their own, because all of them had a different purpose. But that first one, man, it was something.
Yes, sir. And thank you, Brother Minister, for doing like my father and so many others, just rubbing it in our face. Like if y'all wasn't there, you just listen, like you ain't.
I mean, that's the only thing you can say. You can try and describe it, people be like, okay. But even the people that watching on television, it even came across the airwaves, and the kind of impact it had on people. You have organizations right now that still exist that came out of the Million Man March that's doing great work in the community, because the minister told us to go back and join. And some people went back and they started their own organization. When I came to Chester, I met brothers, Black Men in Motion, who had came out of the Million Man March doing great work in the city. So you have stories around the country that are untold, children that were adopted, you know what I mean, out of that, families brought back together that may have been torn apart, and men restored. So it was a great day.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. And thank you again, Brother Minister. And I want to make sure I thank you on behalf of myself, my family, and the viewing audience of the People's Podcast for your sacrifice and the sacrifices of your family as well. We send them nothing but love and positive energy as well, sir.
Thank you, brother.
Praise be to Allah. What has been the greatest trial in your life, and how have you overcome that trial?
The greatest trial in my life. It's a good question. It's hard to point to one particular thing. I think the general acceptance of the mission and the lack of wisdom and understanding at a young age. I came in at 22. I got married at 23. I've been married 30 years now. And I think the greatest trial has been the struggle to mature as a man, accepting this mission, but also as a husband and a father, and trying to navigate that challenge with the limited wisdom, because, especially when, like I said, you come in, you hyped as a new FOI, and you getting this teaching, and you think this thing is going to be over in 6 months, a year, the world going to be gone, man, and you trying to do everything the ministers say, and then you get married and take on a wife, and you dumb, don't know what you're doing, and then I'm a soldier, so, and depending on what kind of guidance you're getting, you can become very neglectful of your family. And even if you're not willingly neglectful, just the mission takes you away, especially if you begin to labor in any capacity. So I think my greatest struggle has really been, like I said, it's a trial, because, it's a part of really life and really maturing. So I think my greatest trial and struggle has been growing to be a man who understands his role as a husband and a father, and trying to fulfill that, as well as striving to be a servant. And the minister helped to bring so much clarity for it when he gave us our mantra. I don't remember when exactly it was, but he said it's God, family, nation.
Yes, sir.
I was like, wow, because, most of us is God, nation, family. And we do so much damage on many levels, and we do so many injustices to our children in particular. So I think in general, that trial of maturing, and really it's been a great trial to really try and accept the position and role that I'm in. In the student ministry, that's been a battle to really embrace it with the level of confidence necessary, and really, and people will say, yeah, this, that, and give, but it's when you grow up Black in America, of course, many of us struggle with self-esteem and things like that. So when then you come to the nation and you get roles, positions, and responsibilities, really accepting it, you know what I mean? And I think it went hand in hand with me growing as a man. So I think just the last, and I tell the believers this, and I tell the brothers this often, especially when you're dealing with marriage, you really have to approach it and really attack it in a way where you really try to fully understand your role, which you're never going to fully understand it. Yes, and then really try to take on the challenge of being a husband and a father, to really try to mature and be the kind of man that can raise a family. And it's hit and miss, but then, like I say, so that has been I would say my greatest trial, accepting, for lack of a better word, the position God has placed me in the ministry, and really maturing. And that's why grandparenting is so great, because you get to work on and correct mistakes that you made and try to help your children, but they got to go through their own maturing as well. So I think that would be, what I would say has been my greatest trial. Because I don't have one incident that, other than, of course, personal loss and things like that. But I think that's been the greatest challenge. And I really think I'm really just in the last, few years, really coming to accept it. And the minister's message to us in the ministry this past March took it to a whole nother level that I'm trying to wrestle with and accept. When he told us to go back to our cities and take this position, he told us to be the kings of the city, which is a whole nother realm. So, but praise be to Allah, it's the nation, the life brings you trials. And when you wake up to this truth, or this truth, then your life is a struggle, but it's a beautiful struggle once you take the right mental approach.
Beautiful. Praise be to Allah. Excellent teaching, sir. I also, in the comments, my sister Naima said good teaching as well, and Sister Khadija said good question. We've hearing so much about this bean pie. You wasn't gonna hype yourself up. You know what I'm saying? Where
I knew I wasn't gonna get through this without the bean pie.
Man, where
was that?
Where can we get this bean pie? This is infamous, it's world famous. What's going on? Where can we get the bean pie from?
Man, right now, man, I had it in different stores, and I had brothers coming from New York, some from down DC sometimes. But right now, my wife and I, we the shipping thing is something we haven't really wanted to do, because trying to ship and keep it at the quality, and then actually the cost factor that's involved. But I started with the idea maybe during the pandemic, and I'm going to follow up with it. I'm thinking about selling the mix, freezing it, and being able to ship it and sell it like that, to see how it holds up in the packaging. But, they say I make a decent bean pie. So, Allah blessed me in the early 90s, actually, when I got, that was another trial. I got married in August 1990, and I got laid off from my job, I think in October 1990. But that's the last time I worked for the white man. But it's been a great trial, but right after that, I learned how to make bean pie. A brother told me how to make it, and I've been working with it ever since. And, it's a decent pie, and we working to try to get it out and about so that others, because people always ask me about shipping and things like that. But we will make sure we get one down to you in Atlanta. I got family down there. I may be traveling actually in the beginning of the year. My wife wants to go see her sister. So I might have to come down and bring a few.
Please, praise be to Allah. Yes, sir, because I don't know how to do, you giving me a mix, it would just be.
Oh, it'll already be mixed. All you got to do is put it in the oven. it's gonna be already pre-mixed. It's gonna be packaged and just throw it in there. Follow instructions. That's how I learned. I just followed instructions.
Once again, brother, when you come down, just have me one already
Yes,
made.
sir.
I don't want to mess up something. I'm mixing.
You don't want to do that, right? I hear you. Yes,
yes, sir. My next question for you is, what type of music do you listen to?
Man, I listen to pretty much everything other than country. I always tell my children, you know, they talk about hip hop. I said, man, I'm from the origins of hip hop. You know, I remember the first, you know, I was in 6th grade hearing Rapper's Delight when the first commercial hip hop records. So I listen to hip hop, listen to jazz, R&B, you know, some classical, but you know, depending on the mood, you know what I mean. But I would say R&B and hip hop are the mainstays. You know, I like the old school hip hop. Some of the new ones, you know, I can work with, but for the most part, I'm listening to the 80s and early 90s hip hop.
Yes, sir. Okay. And let's say right there with the 80s and 90s hip hop, if you could choose your favorite album of all time, what would it be?
My favorite album of all time?
Yes, sir.
Ooh. Oh man, I gotta go Public Enemy. Takes a Nation of Millions.
Okay.
To hold us back. That's probably my number one. It's a few of them, but that might be my number one. My brother texted me and corrected me. I said I got married in 90 and I got married in 91. Brother Jabril's father had to make sure we got married a day apart, Brother Kyle now. So it was 91 just for accuracy when I got married. I joined the nation in 90. But I got married in October 91. So I got the day. I actually courted. I started courting in August. So I was only courting for about 60 days and we got married. And then I lost my job a month after. But anyway, thank you, Brother Kyle, for correcting me.
Yes, sir. Okay, and I have one more question for you, Minister. What would you like your legacy to be? My number one legacy I wanted to be, I would say that I served people. Of course, the love for my family, the love for our nation and our people, but that I added to individuals' lives something, you know, along the way in the journey. So to be that I served, that would be my number one desire, and that what I have done in the way of sacrifice and struggle to help our people, I know it's not in vain, because I truly believe, whether I'm living or dead, that what we work for will come into fruition. So I just pray Allah that my family will and does know the love I have for them, and that their father was a soldier in the army of Allah. You know, I want to go down as, you know, I always say it. That's why I haven't got my picture. I met the minister, and man, I haven't got a picture with him yet. I need the archives so my great grandchildren can say, man, my great grandpa was at fire. So Brother Don Enoch took a photo and somebody stepped in front of it, and everybody got a picture that was there. And brother right before me, and I was like, man, I didn't get my picture. But we gonna work it out one day, inshallah. But yes, I just want to know, I just want my legacy to be that I tried to serve people and help people. Beautiful. Praise be to Allah. And inshallah, your great grandchildren will be able to still go on YouTube and type into people's podcasts and say great grandfather. There you go. That's right. Modern technology. That's yes, a fact. Sir. I was on the people's podcast. Praise be to Allah. Sister Kimberly says, yes, sir. Sister Khadijah says she loves this episode. We thank you, Brother Keith, for being a brother first at all times. Brother Troy saying, yes, sir. And some people just showing you love. And I can't wait to put this on YouTube. Once again, on behalf of myself, my family, and the viewing audience of the People's Podcast, we thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come on the People's Podcast. And I look forward to meeting you in person, yes, inshallah, soon. And I'm glad one of the greatest gifts that has been come out of the podcast is I've met believers from all over the country virtually that now I have a connection with, that we can have something to talk about when we see you in person. Thank you, sir. This means a lot to me.
Thank you.
This is Joshua Leonard Muhammad signing off for the People's Podcast. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you.